so that our self, the self, is not in the center of the stage of life. There are other aspects which matter, and therefore the sense of the other selves, may be people, could be animals, it could be the environment or whatever, that takes a priority for us, and therefore there is the lowering of the involvement in the world of I, me and my, and that therefore, and through kindness to others, through acts of service and compassion, we then take a lower profile because others matter, if not matter more than we do. And religion also reminds us as well the essential teachings of love thy neighbor. And in that great story of Jesus, of the Good Samaritan, where seeing a person in pain and in distress, though the person may be identified as a group or a nation or a minority in which there is some difficulty or conflict, nevertheless the act of love for the suffering person takes a priority, and through that we say, oh, this is really a selfless act. And we do need, in a regular way, to really reflect on our life and to ask ourselves, in what ways in our day-to-day life are we able to forget ourselves for the welfare of others? And just recently, as a very small example, I was speaking to a mother of a child who has cerebral palsy, this very crippling disease. And 3 or 4 times, the child I think is about 12 or 13 years of age, 3 or 4 times a night the mother gets up to turn the child over because the position of the child becomes very painful. Every day, 365 days a year, the mother is waking up 3 or 4 times a night to adjust the physical posture of the child. And one reads of these stories, these touching and selfless accounts of the dedication of love to another, often going very quietly, very unspoken, just a dedicated commitment, and it's sustaining itself year in, year out. One reads, remember speaking when there was the campaigns against the anti-personnel mines in some countries like Angola, on the borders of North and South Korea, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, and many other countries. Literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these landmines were placed in the ground. And there are workers who, centimetre by centimetre, go to these areas, often foreign nationals going into these places to help clear the landmines so that children can play in the fields, fathers, parents can grow plants in the field. And it's a high-risk activity, and it's an extremely selfless kind of service there. And those many, many stories of this, whereby we look in the world around us, we see these lovely acts of selfless service. They're important, they're inspiring, and also, and equally important, is that they perhaps help us to check in with our life and to see in our life where are the selfless acts taking place, what shows and demonstrates that. And in the Buddhist tradition, there was a significant protest about too much of the contemplative, meditative attitude to the Dharma, and there's something of a rebellion against that. What emerged, and many of you will know this well, is the tradition of the Bodhisattva. And it's a tradition in which reflection and inquiry and meditation and contemplation certainly deeply valued, but not more than compassion, not more than the acts of service. And so, just in the last retreat, in the space of 3 days, this was in Israel, 3 of the people had to leave the retreat because 3 relatives, parents in fact, of 3 different people, had been diagnosed with cancer, and within a couple of days of joining the retreat, had to leave the retreat in order to give support to the person. And 2 of them had only just received the diagnosis. And of course that information can be extremely painful, and it's a situation one could just stay and sit on the meditation cushion, but the heart says, and appropriately so, the act of compassion, the going to and the attending to the suffering is the priority, and that priority is, as it were, an expression, we might call it, of the Bodhisattva tradition. The Buddha, in his teachings, of course, recognizes and acknowledges the power of love, metta, the power of deep friendship and kindness, how it supports and transforms our life, how it deeply nourishes us, as well as the acts of compassion, meaning the action and the activity to relieve suffering. And just recently I had Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is the much loved translator of many of the discourses of the Buddha, wrote an article, and kind of squeezing the article down to its bare essence. And this is in a very classical Orthodox Theravada monk, and was expressing concern that sometimes in the tradition and in the Vipassana world, that some people may be getting the idea that if I just sit on the meditation cushion and do my loving kindness meditations, my metta meditations, then those lovely vibrations will transform all those wretched governments out there, enlighten people's lives and transform the world. This is called mad optimism. And it may just be feeding into a kind of ideology in which, in this ideological view, that it's a kind of, and Bhikkhu Bodhi makes reference to this, a kind of middle class comfort zone, so that instead of the middle way, the middle classes are now ruling, I would say. And how very easy it is, the feel-good factor. If, however, with loving kindness metta meditations, they genuinely give some insight and some empowerment to the heart, and really contribute to a much deeper awareness of the support and the necessity and vitality of love, and it leads into something in the daily life, then every moment of metta meditation, of sitting on the cushion, sharing, generating loving kindness for oneself and others really matters. And what I've been noticing, that there's a bit of a trend going on, and sometimes that trend is in these guided loving kindness meditations, the world of other people and their suffering and their difficulties is gradually sometimes getting forgotten in the language, and the metta meditation is all about metta for oneself, and well, the world, well later on. And in this sending lots of metta for oneself, and then at the end of it, as a little add-on, oh yes, and the others as well, may all beings be happy. And one has to be just a little mindful with these meditations, whether it hasn't got a little flavour of narcissism in it, of kindness for myself, which is important, friendship towards myself, love towards myself, all of that is important. But any exaggeration in one direction isn't actually transforming self to selflessness, but it's wrapping it up in nice, warm, cozy feeling.